It's time now to bring you up to date with all the day's business news. And Stephen Carroll is with us. Morning to you, Stephen.
Hi,
Let's start off with Samsung. They're having a good day.
They are, because the electronics company says it expects profits to be up 10% in the first 3 months of the year compared to last year. That's a sign that its latest smartphone, the Galaxy S7, is selling well. Samsung is forecasting operating profit of around $5.7 billion. The figures will come as a relief to the South Korean company, which while still being the world's largest mobile phone maker, has seen profits and market share under pressure from rivals. Samsung won't be giving the full breakdown of its results, though, until later this month.
Talk us through what's happening on the markets, if you would.
Well, the strengthening of the Nikkei, or strengthening of the Japanese yen, continuing to hurt shares in Japan. The index staying close to the flat line after shedding more than 7% in the past 2 weeks. As you can see elsewhere in Asia, falls across the market. Interestingly, the shares in Samsung are actually down by over 1% in South Korea today. That's not helping things on the Kospi, despite its positive profit forecasts. Some more of today's business headlines for you next. Fiat Chrysler is cutting 1,300 jobs at a factory in the US state of Michigan. The job losses are down to weaker demand for its Chrysler 200 car. The cuts will affect some 40% of workers at the plant and is the carmaker's first major downsizing in 7 years. Reports say that Telecom Italia is considering up to 15,000 job cuts in response to energy company Enel's plans to open a rival fibre optic network. Enel announced last month it was spending €2.5 billion on the project, but Bloomberg says that rumours of job losses at Telecom Italia could be a strategy by the company to highlight what it considers as unfair competition. Falling oil prices have forced Angola to start bailout talks with the International Monetary Fund. The country is Africa's second largest exporter of oil and has been hard hit by the collapse in prices. The IMF says it's ready to help Angola diversify its economy with a rescue package.
Let's turn to the Panama Papers next, Stephen, and how the French government are now trying to cash in on these revelations.
The French newspaper Le Monde published a list of the names of companies, including one created by the former IMF director Dominique Strauss-Kahn, that have used the services of the Panama law firm at the centre of these leaks, Mossack Fonseca. The French government wants to get its hands on this list so to investigate if these people have paid the right taxes. But as Charles Pellegrin now reports, it's not an easy task.
Over 1,500 French citizens have hidden assets on Panamanian shores. That's what the Panama Papers reveal, and now the French government has resolved to find the ones who've committed tax fraud.
We already know some of these names. In the last 2 years, the tax administration processed around 700 cases where Panama had appeared at one point or another.
But there will be many obstacles in the way. Panama, as well as the journalists behind the investigation, are not sharing this list of names. So the state will have to consult their own files or ask banks and tax administrations in other countries to share their data. Finding the names of the potential tax dodgers is only the beginning of the French tax office's work. This inspector says the checks could take as long as 2 years, and the Ministry of Finance is undergoing job cuts at the same time.
Some might pay what they owe, but others will keep going to other places that are even less transparent. It's always the same. If we don't have the legal and human resources to fight this, it'll keep happening.
Once a person is flagged, there still are ways to avoid paying the full price.
If you look at previous scandals, there's a strong chance that there will actually only be negotiations with these tax dodgers to get money back into state coffers quickly, and no actual prosecutions. In addition, it's not very likely that the middlemen, banks and law firms will be affected.
France has committed to cast a wide net to catch all tax dodgers, but given its resources, the real question is, how many will get away?
Now, we know that some 400 journalists from around the world worked on sifting through the Panama Papers, but they weren't alone. A French startup was working with them on processing the vast quantity of information. Sébastien Heymann is the chief executive of Linkurious, and he joins us in studio this morning. Sébastien, thanks for your time. Can you explain to us how you got involved in the Panama Papers?
Well, it was an incredible story because we had first interaction with a consortium of international journalism for the Swiss Leaks investigation. And we knew that they were on something big with this investigation. We helped them with the software that we create, Linkurious Enterprise, so that they can provide access to their journalists worldwide to the information and find hidden facts inside the data.
So we know that there were these 11 million documents that were part of this leak. So your job was to make sure the journalists could navigate their way around this information.
Yes, most of this information already exists in the data, but it is really huge. So the software helps journalists to find specific names inside the data and then check if there is connections between bank accounts, nominees, offshore companies, and so that they can start to have very
find the connections,
exactly,
really.
Follow the connections, like we follow the money as well, to create their story and dig into the data.
And was it difficult to find, because you created, I suppose, the interface, so when a journalist tried to access this information, it was your software they were using to do so. So you could say they're as familiar with Linkurious now as they are with the documents themselves.
Yes, actually, they use the software a lot for the investigation, and part of the difficulty was to keep them secure during it. They may live in countries where freedom of press is not
as protected as it is somewhere like in France, for example.
So we provide them a secure way to access the data, to communicate between them, and to share their drawings that will lead them to more investigation.
And can you explain to us a little bit about Linkurious itself? How long have you been doing this sort of work?
Well, we are a very young startup. We started 3 years ago only, after research in computer science and big data. We really wanted to help journalists from the early beginning, and now we move to expand to fields like fraud detection or cyber security.
So who would your other sort of clients be? Who else do you work with apart from journalists?
So, for instance, we have the French Ministry of Finance to fight tax fraud evasion. We also help companies to provide better access to information within the organization, and we have a lot of customers outside of France. So we, for instance, work with the NASA in the US. And we help also companies like banks from anti-money laundering or infrastructure companies like Cisco.
Okay, Sébastien Heymann from Linkurious, thank you for speaking to us on France 24 this morning.
Thank you very much. Certainly in this IT age, it's certainly a very useful product. Good to see it's coming from France. Let's finish up, Stephen, quickly with a story from the US and a slightly embarrassing recall for Ivanka Trump's fashion brand.
That's right. She's had to announce the recall of 20,000 scarves because of the risk of burning people who were wearing them. The rayon scarves were sold in department stores for about 18 months until January of this year. They've had to be recalled by the US Consumer Product Safety Commission because they're too flammable and they pose a burn risk to people who wear them. Embarrassing all round for the Trump name.
Indeed it is. That's all I've got time for. Thank you very much, though, Stephen Carroll with the business news. We're back in a few moments' time with the headlines. Stay with us.